Welcome back, everyone. This is it, the final part of our deep dive series into the Divine Comedy, specifically the Inferno.
That's right. It's been quite a journey alongside Dante, hasn't it? Exploring how his path through the afterlife really mirrors the kinds of journeys we all face.
Exactly. And today, we want to focus on wrapping things up by looking at these last cantos and seeing what practical lessons, what takeaways we can find for our own lives.
Absolutely. We're aiming to distill something useful for you from this final descent. So where did we leave Dante and Virgil?
Okay, so they were deep down in the ninth circle, Cassius. The frozen lake, it's quite a shift from the fire we saw earlier, isn't it?
It really is. And that shift to ice is so significant. Dante seems to be suggesting that the absolute worst kind of evil isn't necessarily fiery rage, but this cold, calculating absence of love, of connection.
A chilling lack of empathy, frozen solid.
Precisely. Betrayal that's so profound it extinguishes all warmth. It's the perfect setting, really, for what they find next.
Which brings us to Canto 34, the absolute bottom. And there he is, Lucifer. But the way Dante describes him, it's not what you might expect, is it? Not some powerful rebel king.
No, not at all. He's monstrous, yes, but also almost pathetic, trapped, frozen in the ice himself. This three-faced giant chewing on Judas, Brutus, and Cassius.
And those three faces, Dante's making a point there.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's widely seen as a deliberate, twisted mockery of the Holy Trinity, each face gnawing on someone who betrayed their ultimate benefactor, Judas betraying the divine, Brutus and Cassius betraying the highest earthly authority in Caesar.
So it reinforces the idea you mentioned earlier, that evil isn't its own force, but more like a distortion, a corruption of good.
Exactly. It's parasitic. It doesn't create. It just twists what's already there. And it highlights the different dimensions of ultimate betrayal in Dante's view, divine and human.
Okay, this next part is fascinating. Virgil leads Dante right up to Lucifer, and then they start climbing down his body to get past the center of the earth, and then suddenly they're climbing up, they've flipped over. What is happening there?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? That moment of reversal. They reach the absolute lowest point, the furthest possible point from God, from good. Passing the center of the earth is that point.
The literal bottom.
The literal bottom.
Huh.
And then the act of turning around, of climbing up Lucifer's legs, is the pivotal moment. It's not just physics, it's symbolic.
A shift in perspective.
A fundamental shift. They've hit rock bottom, and now they're turning away from damnation toward the hope of purgatory, towards ascent. It's the turning point.
And Dante even notes the time, doesn't he? He's very precise.
He is. He mentions it's taken them exactly 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
From Good Friday evening when they entered hell to Holy Saturday evening when they emerge.
Why that detail? Does it matter it was exactly one day?
I think it grounds this deeply symbolic internal journey in real time. It suggests these kinds of intense personal struggles, these descents and the climb back out, they happen within the framework of our actual lives. It's not some abstract eternity, it's lived experience.
Okay. So from this whole final encounter, this whole canto, what are the big lessons we can pull out for ourselves? You mentioned distilling insights.
Right. Let's try and unpack a few key ones. First, building on what we said about Lucifer, this idea of evil, or maybe just negativity, as privation, as an absence.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, Lucifer, the supposed source of all evil, is completely immobile, frozen. He's not doing much, is he? He's just there, utterly stagnant.
So the idea is that maybe the bad stuff we face isn't always this active, powerful force we imagine it to be.
Sort of, yeah. Maybe it's often more about what's missing. A lack of empathy, a lack of courage, a lack of understanding, maybe. Seeing it that way, well, it might change how you deal with it. Focus on building the good stuff that's absent, rather than just fighting the bad.
That's a different way to frame it. Okay, what's the second lesson?
This one comes from Judas, Brutus, and Cassius. It's about the paradox of freedom.
They were all free to choose, and they chose betrayal.
Exactly. They had positions of trust, closeness, opportunity. Yet they used their freedom to betray their greatest benefactors. It highlights the immense weight of our choices.
And the consequences.
And the consequences. Dante shows their misuse of freedom leads to this profound, eternal alienation. They're frozen in that act of betrayal, isolated. It's a stark reminder about where our choices can lead, especially when they involve betraying trust.
It really makes you think about responsibility. Okay, lesson 3. This one feels a bit tough. The necessity of hitting bottom.
Yeah, it sounds grim, doesn't it? But look at Dante and Virgil. They had to go all the way down to the absolute lowest point before they could even start to ascend.
So how does that apply to us?
Well, think about life. Sometimes, don't you find that it's only when things get really, really tough, when you feel like you've hit your limit, that you're actually forced to make a real change?
Yeah, I guess so, when you have nowhere else to go.
Exactly. That lowest point, that hitting bottom, can be the catalyst. It forces you to reassess, to find new strength, maybe discover a different path upwards. The descent enables the ascent, in a way.
It forces a kind of clarity, maybe.
Okay.
Number 4.
This ties into that moment of reversal we talked about, the importance of changing perspective. Remember them climbing down Lucifer, then suddenly climbing up.
The literal turning upside down.
Right. And the lesson there is about how we tackle problems that feel, well, insurmountable when you're stuck.
When you keep hitting the same wall.
Precisely. Sometimes the reason you're stuck is because you're only looking at it from one angle. Dante's literal flip symbolizes the need for a radical shift in viewpoint.
So try looking at the problem completely differently.
Yes. Maybe the answer isn't to push harder in the same direction, but to fundamentally change how you're seeing the situation itself. Turn it upside down, figuratively speaking.
That's a powerful image. I like that. Okay, final lesson.
The final one really contrasts Lucifer and our travelers. It's about stasis versus movement.
Lucifer frozen, Dante and Virgil moving.
Exactly. Lucifer represents getting trapped, stuck in negativity, stuck in the past, stuck in harmful patterns. He's immobile.
But Dante and Virgil, even after seeing all that horror,
They keep moving. They're striving, pushing forward, trying to get out. It underscores how vital movement, growth, and progress are. Life is about learning, evolving. Stagnation, like Lucifer's, is a kind of death. We need to keep moving on our journey.
wow. So looking back at just this final canto, we've got ideas about negativity as absence, the weight of free will, hitting bottom as a catalyst, the power of perspective shifts, and the need to keep moving forward.
That's a pretty good summary. It's amazing how much practical wisdom you can actually pull from this medieval journey through hell, isn't it? Things that really resonate with navigating our own lives today.
It truly is. And as we wrap up not just this canto, but our whole deep dive into the Inferno, that might be the biggest takeaway of all.
What's that?
That life is a journey full of dark woods, steep climbs, maybe even hitting bottom sometimes. But like Dante, the goal is always to keep moving, to learn, and hopefully to emerge. Well, to re-behold the stars as he does right after leaving hell.
Beautifully put. And every ending, like the end of this particular series of deep dives, carries the seed of a new beginning, doesn't it? A new perspective gained from the journey we've taken together.
Indeed. Well, that brings us to the close of this exploration. Thank you, truly, for joining us on this path through Dante's Inferno. We genuinely hope it's given you some things to think about for your own journey.
It's been a pleasure sharing it.
This marks the end of this specific journey with you all. Until we meet again for another exploration, farewell.